Well, the resistance that's coming from upcoming BRICS nations, African nations against U.S. hegemony, and them pushing back against the dollar. You have Lula, who many of the professional managerial classes was celebrating, despite having no idea who he was. Lula is calling for a Latin American-based currency. Yeah, Lula also pushing back against the NATO war. So I don't know. I'm not sure if you see this. I want to show you this.
No,
And
I
actually
haven't
want to
seen this. No, you gonna teach
yeah,
me, expose me to
yeah.
this
I
now.
want and I want you to. I want to get your kind of thoughts and opinion about what's happening, because I think like MSNBC is running Trump stories every fucking day. TYT doing reactions to Ben Shapiro, but this is the most important shit that's going on right now. The geopolitical shift where other countries are starting to reject the West. So I want to show you this clip. I don't know if CJ saw it as well. I always like showing CJ clips blind and getting
That's
his
wonderful.
raw reaction. So let's play, and I want to get your reaction.
I have not.
And,
I have not seen it.
before I play this, this is just a headline. This is the president of Cuba, not Cuba, Kenya, President Ruto to the West, no longer want the IMF and World Bank. So I don't want to spoil it. I want him to explain.
Need a financial transaction tax at a global level where even countries like Kenya pay. We do not want anything for free. You will pay more eventually because you have a bigger economy. We will pay commensurate to our economy. And we want those resources controlled not by IMF and World Bank. Because IMF and World Bank, you have the final say. We don't have no say.
Yes.
We want another organization of equals where you have as much say because you pay. We need a new financial architecture where governance, where power is not on the hands of a few people.
You may
we
have
can
to
agree on the
restart it.
governance of the institution.
There we go,
We
there we
can
go.
agree on the sharing of power so that all of us have access to resources that go to making sure, number one, renewable energy. We invest in decarbonization. Number two, adaptation, mitigation, smart agriculture. Number three, restoring our planet, restoring our biodiversity, and making sure our carbon sinks work. This is what we are saying, and we would appreciate a little understanding. We want to be. We are talking the normal. If we continue talking the normal, Emmanuel, we will never solve this problem. Things are not going forward, they're going backwards. Tokenism, installment will not solve this problem. We have a much bigger problem than the installment we are discussing here will solve.
Glorious clip. Now, I want to get your reaction, Dr. Cornel West, since you're running to be the commander-in-chief. This is a problem that the U.S. president is going to have to deal with because of the legacy of the United States. Many African countries and countries in the global south, this new BRIC system, they're rejecting U.S. dollarization and U.S. hegemony. So what your general reaction to this and what your messaging would be to Americans that are kind of concerned about this as well?
I mean, it's really one of ambivalence that I applaud the courage and the plain speech. We were just talking about plain and frank speech to one of the figures of the transatlantic power structure. And that's very, very important. And it's not to be downplayed at all. But the flip side of it is the role of the African bourgeoisie. On the one hand, you've got the courage, the determination to speak to this particular transatlantic elite who's president of France. The de-dollarization, which is a way in which American hegemony in the economic front can play an important role. But as a African president and the role of the bourgeoisies and African nation states vis-a-vis their own poor, vis-a-vis their own working class, also needs to be looked at from a working class perspective. Because if de-dollarization is simply an African imitation on a regional level of what U.S. hegemonic institutions were doing, then it isn't as if that's going to speak to the situation of poor and working people. And it's not going to come to terms with the levels of corruption and lack of accountability too often of the bourgeoisies in Africa. And this is Fanon's point, going all the way back to Richard of the Earth in 1960, 61. So I'm both yes.
Yeah, that's
and
actually a very
suspicious
interesting point. That's
at the same
an
time.
interesting point, and I think the argument that a lot of these countries and leaders are making, I think that they have the support of the people, is that even though they may have corruption, they may have issues, especially among the bourgeoisie, they want to deal with those issues and have those domestic issues. They don't want the IMF and outside organizations to be the cause of their issues. So, I think that's mostly their concern. I think that's I as an outsider, especially as someone who lived in the empire, I have a hard time casting shade on other countries. If they have their problem, I want it at least to be their problem, and not because of we dictating them financially and all the problems that the West is causing. But that is an interesting point, and that is something that people need to think about, because not all these leaders are speaking on.
Well, most of them are not. No, but
right?
as internationalists, we have to be deeply concerned with the Kenyan working class.
That's a good point.
I mean? Our concern is not just working class in the American empire. I'm concerned about the working class in Brazil vis-a-vis Lula.
Absolutely.
I've known Lula since the 1980s when he founded the Workers' Party and ran 3 times before he finally won. And we continually had dialogue and pressure in that regard, because the process of attaining power means you need thicker forms of accountability, even when you come from the working class.
Absolutely. Lula,
I'm not in any way disagreeing with you in terms of the.
No, it's very interesting. No, your point is very interesting. Absolutely. I think we both made very good points there. And Lula is very interesting because Lula has been, he exceeded my expectations on the global stage. Domestically, he's struggling a lot, guys, because he's dealing with a lot of right-wing forces. A lot of people that even support him politically don't want to help him accomplish a lot of agenda. I was reading an article a few days ago how Lula's agenda essentially stalled domestically in Brazil. But in terms of like how he's calling out NATO, he's standing up for Cuba, he's calling out the Biden administration on escalating against Venezuela. These are things like, man, this is great for the global stage. So
and his defense of deforestation, which is, we've got 70% of the world of forest right there in Brazil and Latin America as a whole. He's been very strong against the fossil fuel industries, which is such powerful forces as well.
Yeah, it already started to slow down as well. I saw a story. I didn't read the whole thing, but I saw a story a few days ago where it said the deforestation is already starting to improve because the policy. I'm not an expert in Lula domestic policy, but it seems like it's already making some effect, and it's just fantastic to see that he's standing up to empire regarding Venezuela, regarding NATO. He called out Zelensky in the West. And what I said, another headline I saw a few days ago, I want to get your thoughts on, since you're running against Joe Biden. Apparently they're sending $500 million more to Ukraine. CJ, you were just at Skid Row.
Yes.
People can't feed themselves. CJ having housing issues. We are struggling to eat. Meanwhile, Congress is sending $500 million more to Russia, Ukraine. And since you're running for president, I want to get your statement on that.
Well, as I said before, with on the one hand, you got Trump and pushing the American empire toward the second Civil War. On the other hand, you got Biden pushing toward the Third World War on the international front. And it's a proxy war with Russia. It's very clear. And the Ukrainian brothers and sisters are suffering in a very, very ugly way. But the U.S. imperial provocation is a fundamental force that has led toward that suffering. And there's no, just the golden rule. Just look at the golden rule. We've talked about this before. The golden rule that, Russian missiles in Canada and Mexico would be blown to smithereens in 10 minutes. And everybody would be given Washington, D.C. a standing ovation for fighting for freedom. You see, this is not just hypocrisy. This is gangster activity. That's how empires behave. They behave as gangsters. They're bullies. And you have to call it out. That's back to Malcolm again. Just call it out. They're gangsters and bullies. That's how they proceed. And that has to be noted. And then the question becomes, well, then how do you stop the war? How do you make sure that the suffering in some sense ceases? How do you have some diplomatic process such that folk can come together? They almost had it in March, Wasn't for the U.S. government.
Yes.
For the U.S. government.
Yes.
They would have had it in March.
Yes.
Both sides were open to it. You see, so I mean, again, and people say, oh, Brother West, you're so anti-American. No, you're missing the point. I'm trying to tell the truth.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to tell it to anti-America. If America's not on the side of truth, so be it.
Yes.
You know, if
You're a
Mick
truth
Jagger-
teller yourself.
If Mick Jagger can't dance as well as James Brown, that don't make me anti-white. I'm just telling the truth about my brother Mick. I'm telling the truth about Mick. Love you, Mick.
Oh, that's a funny one right there.